Let's go Dolphins! Something big is happening behind the scenes in Miami, and I'm telling you right now, it could completely change the future of the Dolphins in a way no one expected. There are negotiations underway, decisions being made, and one of them could shock the entire fan base even more than the last. But before revealing what's really going on, be sure to like this post right now if you truly believe in the future of the Miami Dolphins. And I want to see the real fans show up in the comments. Type this right now. Go Dolphins! I still believe in this team. Now let's get straight into it. The Dolphins made a stunning move by trading Jaylen Waddle to the Denver Broncos, and the return is massive. Miami secured the 30th overall pick, the 94th pick in the 3rd round, and the 130th pick in the 4th round, along with a swap in that same round. This deal now leaves the Dolphins with a total of 11 picks in the 2026 NFL Draft, including 7 selections within the top 100 and an incredible 4 third-round picks. This is not a small adjustment. This is a full reset. And if you're thinking this might be the only major move, think again. There's a growing belief that General Manager John Eric Sullivan is far from done. The strategy is becoming clear. Accumulate draft capital, rebuild through young talent, and reshape the roster from the ground up. The Dolphins are no longer patching holes. They're tearing everything down to build something entirely new. But here's where things get really interesting. With Waddle gone, the current wide receiver room looks extremely thin. Names like Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell are seen more as complementary pieces rather than true leaders of a receiving core. Malik Washington hasn't yet proven he can be a reliable deep threat. And if you're trying to properly evaluate a quarterback like Malik Willis, you need real weapons around him. So what's the plan? Miami now has multiple paths. They could target wide receivers in the draft, with several prospects being discussed across different rounds. But here's the twist. Based on the front office philosophy, heavily influenced by the Green Bay Packers, it's unlikely they'll spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver. That means we could see multiple receivers selected in rounds 2 and 3 instead, using that incredible draft depth to spread the risk and maximize upside. And then there's the trade market. Names like Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. are being quietly monitored as potential buy low opportunities. Both are young, still on rookie deals, and could be acquired for something like a second-round pick. If Miami pulls off a move like that, it could instantly reshape the offense without waiting on rookie development. But now we get to the most controversial part of all. What about Devon Achane? This is where things get uncomfortable. Achane is one of the most explosive players in the league, coming off seasons with elite production, including around 1,500 all-purpose yards and double-digit touchdowns. He's dynamic, versatile, and arguably one of the best receiving backs in the NFL today. And yet, there's a very real possibility he could be next. Why? Because he's entering the final year of his rookie contract, and a rebuilding team may not want to commit big money to a running back. His value might never be higher than it is right now. Cheap contract, elite production, and high demand from contenders looking for that final piece. The expectation? Miami could look for a late first-round pick or an early second-round pick in return. Let that sink in. The Dolphins might trade both Jaylen Waddle and Devon Achane as part of a full rebuild. This is not just a roster adjustment. This is a complete identity shift. And this is exactly where things get even more intense behind the scenes, because if the Dolphins actually pull the trigger on a Devon Achane trade, we're not just talking about losing talent. We're talking about completely redefining what this offense will look like moving forward. Think about it for a second. You already moved on from Jaylen Waddle, one of the most explosive wide receivers this team had, and now you're potentially removing your most dynamic running back as well. That's not a coincidence. That's a clear signal. This front office is fully committed to building a new core from scratch, and they are not afraid to make painful decisions to get there. The logic is cold, but it makes sense when you break it down. Achane is entering the final year of his rookie contract, and if Miami waits too long, they risk either overpaying him or losing value in a future deal. Right now, he's incredibly attractive on the market, elite production, low salary, and immediate impact for a contender. That combination is exactly what teams looking to make a Super Bowl push are willing to pay for. And here's where things start to connect even more. If the Dolphins can flip Achane for something like a late first-round pick or an early second-round pick, they suddenly add even more premium draft capital to an already stacked arsenal. We're talking about a team that could control the draft board in multiple rounds, targeting not just wide receivers, but offensive linemen, defensive playmakers, and maybe even long-term cornerstone pieces at key positions. This is how dynasties are built, but it's also how fan bases get tested. Because let's be honest, not everyone is on board with this approach. There are fans who believe you don't trade away elite talent like Waddle and Achane unless you're absolutely certain about your plan. Others are starting to buy into the vision, trusting John Eric Sullivan and this new regime to build something sustainable instead of chasing short-term success. And then there's the quarterback situation. Malik Willis is now at the center of all of this. The Dolphins brought him in, and if they truly want to evaluate what he can become, they need to surround him with the right pieces. That's why the wide receiver discussion becomes even more critical. Whether it's through the draft or a surprise trade, Miami cannot afford to leave him without weapons. Because if Willis struggles, how much of that is really on him, and how much is on the roster around him? That's the risk of a rebuild like this. You're not just developing players, you're developing an entire system, and everything has to align at the right time. Now, looking ahead, don't be surprised if more rumors start surfacing in the coming weeks. Teams are already monitoring Miami's situation closely, especially those who feel they're just one piece away from contention. If Achane officially hits the trade block, the market could heat up very quickly, and the Dolphins might find themselves with multiple offers on the table. And if that happens, Sullivan will have a massive decision to make. Does he stick to the long-term vision and continue stockpiling picks, or does he recognize that some players are simply too valuable to let go? Because once you go all in on a rebuild like this, there's no turning back. And there's another layer to this story that Dolphins fans need to pay very close attention to, because what's happening right now is not just about players being traded or draft picks being accumulated. It's about a complete philosophical shift inside the organization. This front office is clearly operating with a long-term blueprint, and every move we're seeing is connected. When you stack up 11 draft picks, including 7 in the top 100, you're giving yourself flexibility that very few teams in the NFL have. And flexibility means power. Power to move up in the draft, power to trade for young talent, and power to correct mistakes quickly if something doesn't go as planned. But here's the part that might make you think twice. Rebuilds sound great on paper. Stockpile picks, develop young players, create a sustainable contender. But the reality? It's unpredictable. Not every draft pick hits. Not every young player develops. And not every rebuild leads to a Super Bowl window. That's why this moment is so critical for the Dolphins. Because if they miss on these picks, if Malik Willis doesn't develop the way they hope, or if they fail to bring in the right weapons around him, this entire strategy could set the franchise back years instead of pushing it forward. Now, let's talk about something that not many people are discussing yet, leadership inside the locker room. When you trade away players like Jaylen Waddle and potentially Devon Achane, you're not just losing production, you're losing identity, energy, and leadership presence. These are players who impact the culture of the team, not just the stat sheet. And when you bring in a wave of rookies, that leadership has to come from somewhere else. So who steps up? That's a question that doesn't have a clear answer yet. And it's one of the hidden challenges of a rebuild like this. At the same time, there's a huge opportunity here. If the Dolphins hit on even a few of these draft picks, especially at wide receiver and along the offensive line, they could build a young, explosive core that grows together over the next few seasons. And if Malik Willis develops chemistry with those players early, you could be looking at a completely different team by 2027. And don't forget, Miami isn't just limited to the draft. With all this capital, they can stay aggressive in the trade market. If a young star becomes available, the Dolphins now have the assets to go after him without hesitation. That's something they simply didn't have before this